All right, so we will go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome. My name is Rachel Vincent. I'll be your session host today. Just starting off with a quick acknowledgement that by joining us today, you acknowledge that the session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. So if you'd like to use it, click Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Chaunda Scott.
Thank you, everyone. I'm glad to be with you today. The title of my presentation is Making the Unknown Known, Minnesota's Black Community Project, a Black-led nonprofit organization making a positive impact in their community. Next slide, please. A little bit more about myself. I am a professor of human resource development at Oakland University, which is located in Rochester, Michigan. And I'm also the secretary of Minnesota's Black Community Project, which is an African-American-led nonprofit organization located in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Next slide. My presentation is aligned with the conference theme today with Senge's mental models, which in these ways, it brings to light how the ingrained mental models of exclusion in the nonprofit literature, in academic public service courses, and along with negative media reporting on Black individuals and communities impedes teaching and learning about the positive achievements of Black-led nonprofit organizations, Black individuals, as well as Black communities. And it shares how bringing these to light, these mental models to light, can start the process of developing an inclusionary action plan to highlight the positive achievements of Black-led organizations, Black individuals, and Black communities. Next slide. So I'll start out by briefly defining what nonprofit organizations are. So nonprofit organizations are legal established entities that are created and operated for charitable and socially beneficial purposes rather than to make profit. These governing bodies consist of a board of directors along with paid and volunteers, staff members who are responsible for managing the daily operations of nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit organizations receive tax-exempt status from the Internal Revenue Service, which allows tax-deductible donations to these organizations. So therefore, they don't have to pay taxes on their earnings. This is a great benefit because much of the funding sources mainly come from donations and grants. Next slide. In the United States, nonprofit organizations are recognized for the work that they do in providing community services to the public and in the following areas. So for example, for religious organizations, such as churches, religious groups, they're funded under that status. Charitable organizations such as disaster relief, aid relief, and clothing and shelter, those areas are. Educational organizations such as schools, universities that provide teaching and learning to public services. Next slide. Scientific and health organizations, which engage in research for the advancement and well-being of society, and cultural organizations, which aim to preserve cultural heritage of diverse groups through cultural community activities, such as historical and contemporary educational programs, literary works, media art, visual arts, along with cultural music and dance performances, just to name a few. But all of these entities must be made available to the public. Next slide. So some of the related problems around profit organizations are in the United States, they're often highlighted positively in the business literature, public service literature, academic courses, and media reports for their service delivery. However, information remains scant as it highlights how Black-led nonprofit organizations are making a positive impact. This is also related to a study done by the Pew Research Center on the Black Americans' experiences in the news as it relates to 63% of Black Americans believe that they and their communities are mostly viewed negatively in the media. So again, when we only see negative things about what a cultural group is doing, then it kind of plants a seed in our minds that we're not doing anything, which is, not the case. Next slide. So I want to introduce Minnesota's Black Community Project, which is one that I'm involved with in my home state of Minnesota. Minnesota's Black Community Project is a prominent African American led um, organization, nonprofit organization, and it has done some exemplary work in the short time that it's been existent since 2016, which I think makes their efforts worthy of being written about in the nonprofit literature, in public service academic courses, as well as media reports. Next slide. So the background on Minnesota's Black Community Project, it is a small organization launched in 2016 by two prominent African American families in Minnesota, which one is my family, the Scott family, and the Crutchfield family. And we joined to really to extend the work that my father had been doing in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So my father had put together 3 books highlighting what African American success looked like during that time. And he had to self-publish because at that time, it was hard for African Americans to gain that kind of support. And also during this time, we didn't have the computers and all of this technology. And so my father was taking actual pictures of people, writing out short bios underneath them, making the covers, putting them together. And mostly everybody in Minnesota, Black families had these books like on their coffee table during that time. And so the purpose of the work was to highlight and educate others on the accomplishments, whether it be historical or contemporary accomplishments of African Americans in Minnesota, and more specifically to chronicle these accomplishments so they can be included in the Minnesota historical record, which is very important to culture, to capture what all of the cultural groups are doing in the community because they're helping to build the states to be great. Next slide. And 3, that they wanted to encourage African American children and adults to pursue higher education and become successful so that their accomplishments could be chronicled in the Minnesota historical record. I always say, you can't be what you can't see. So if you can see other people like you doing great things, then it's a great encouragement for you to want to do that. Also, making the research available publicly to researchers, students, and the general public who is interested in this topic is very important, especially for students and researchers that are doing, cultural studies. Next slide. Accomplishments to date by the current Minnesota's Black Community Project. Again, we were launched in 2016. So at that time, we did a 3-part public educational series to reintroduce my father's work from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So then in 2017 to 2014, we presented 8 series in the public settings, such as the libraries, the historical societies, and other venues that were willing to uh, let us share our information. And so we pulled from the Black community in the areas of Black doctors, Black photographers, artists, law enforcement officers, history and educational leaders, music education, sports, and wealth. And so we wanted to, bring this forward to the state of Minnesota because, like I said, during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, my father was doing this work alone, but then there had been a gap between what had been done since the 70s until we started up in 2016. Next slide. So then in 2018, we initiated the republishing of my father's books from the 50s, 60s, and 70s into one volume called the Scott Collection. And so that has been, viewed widely, and it's been all over into the Schomburg Museum of Center of Learning Black History in New York. I've presented the work in Harvard. The book is in all of the libraries in Chicago. And so it's really taken off to be, and that was one of our first projects, is to get his works back out there. So we were very happy to get that done and work with the Minnesota Historical Society Press to get that done. And then in 2020, we published our updated volume of my father's work to capture what African American success looks like in the 21st century. So we called that book Minnesota's Black Community in the 21st Century, which received the Book of the Year award from the Academy of Human Resource Development. So we were very excited about that. And this was a critical time in Minnesota in 2020 because that was during the George Floyd murder. And, there was just a lot going on. So this was really something positive going on during that time. And so we were very honored to receive such an esteemed award from the Academy of Human Resource Development. Presently, in June of 2025, we premiered our first documentary entitled Spotlight on Minnesota's Triumphant African American Community. And so we've been showing that, around, we're going to be showing it at the Martha's Vineyard Black Film Festival in June coming up. And we're working on our next project right now that is working on a podcast series to highlight what successful African American rising stars are doing from the ages of 25. To us, this work is really critical because we do want to be included in the historical record in Minnesota. Next slide. So an overview of Singe's learning framework. 2006, Senge, he introduced the idea of the learning organization in his book entitled The Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization, which focused on constant organizational growth and innovation and adapting to change. According to Senge, learning organizations place emphasis on 5 disciplines: systems thinking, personal mastery, mental models, shared vision, and learning and team learning. Creating learning organizations begins by reviewing how organizational structures such as leadership and HR support for personal growth and to challenge old ways of thinking and build a shared vision to encourage teamwork. So I think with Minnesota's Black community, we did want to change the structure of how African Americans were being viewed in Minnesota. And we felt the best way to do that was to form our nonprofit organization and present what African American success looks like in Minnesota. Next slide. So according to Senge, To succeed in today's fast-changing world, organizations and individuals need to be adaptable, work well with others, think creatively, as traditional leadership practices are not enough in today's world. We have to think of ways to include all people, and we need to see all people of all walks of life being successful as well. Singh further notes that organizations who embrace a learning approach can adapt to change faster and be more innovative, work better together, which positions them for long-term success. And so again, within our organization, we're a small group of people, like 7 people, and we have volunteers. We're not paid. This is a volunteer work, and we write grants and to support our efforts. And so, people have been really willing to support our efforts and learn, especially schools and universities. My brother serves as the president, and he's retired from his profession. So he has the opportunity, to go around to different places and make presentations. But I see this work myself as a part of my community engagement work as a human resource development professional. I'm honored to, link my profession with my nonprofit work, because I do think that this is important work for everybody to learn what other cultures, especially the African American culture in Minnesota, is doing. We've had a lot of successful people there. I graduated myself from Minneapolis Central with Prince. So again, it's a small community here of African Americans, and so you can really reach out. I was a former member of the Sounds of Blackness, which is a Grammy-winning organization. So again, there's a lot of talent that is linked with Minnesota, but many times we don't get to know about that because the news is always reporting the negative aspect. Next slide. So using Singh's mental models to turn an organization reflective mirror inward. I hope and I feel that that's what Minnesota's Black community is doing. It's giving the public another look of what African American success looks like in Minnesota. According to Singh, mental models are viewed as deeply ingrained assumptions, biases, generalizations, unwritten rules, beliefs, and images that influence how we understand the world and how things should work. Mental models influence how we interpret information and make decisions, often without conscious awareness or even knowledge. Next slide. For example, I think we did that. Yeah, go back to from my perspective. From my perspective, mental model disciplines can be used as a bias assessment tool to support the inclusion of Black-led nonprofit organizations in the nonprofit literature, public service academic courses, and in media reporting, as it provides a process that organizations, groups, and individuals can draw upon to identify and challenge their established assumptions and biases, and then take action to address them. By doing so, you would be humanizing mental models through reflection and discourse with others, which can help you uncover these issues and address them, and thus start the process of fostering a culture of continuous inclusionary teaching and learning, which I think that's what it should be all about. It should be every day we should have opportunities to learn and teach something. But again, we want to go 360. We want a full understanding of what that looks like. So for me, I'm very honored to be a part of Minnesota's Black community project, even more so because it was my father's work and I can continue from that. So, from my perspective, we need to continue looking at mental models in that way. And how can we look at mental models that have not been helpful and look at ways to meet with our groups of peers to address them so we can start fostering a culture of continuous inclusionary teaching and learning. I think there's next slide. On a final note, in a learning organization, leaders are designers, stewards, and teachers. They are responsible for building organizations where people continuously expand their capabilities to understand complexity, clarify vision, and improve shared mental models. That is, they are responsible for learning, according to Senge. Next slide. So thank you, everyone that attended. I hope that you gleaned some important information about Minnesota's Black community organizations, and more specifically, how nonprofit organizations can really add value to communities. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time. Oh, look at all the people.
I came in a little late and I missed your introduction. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about yourself? And
Okay. Okay, well, my name is Dr. Chaunda Scott. I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm currently living in Southfield, Michigan, and I'm a full professor at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. I've been at Oakland University for 27 years. During that time, I have about 8 books out. I've been a Fulbright Scholar in South Africa. I've got numerous diversity awards, 20 or so. And I teach workforce diversity classes, human resource development. I'm also a member of the Initiative for Eradicating Racism at Oakland University. And that's a little about me.
very, very impressive. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Oh, what's next? Well, like I said, we are working on a podcast right now. So in the documentary, you know, we kind of highlighted people from different professions in Minnesota. So we have artists, we have Gary Hines, who's the leader of the Sounds of Blackness. We have Mayor Melvin Carter, who's the mayor of St. Paul, Minnesota, who's African American. We have some people from the legal profession, you know, people who own the Black newspaper. So the documentary just got released in June. So it's doing quite well. I'll be presenting at the Chaunda Center for Black History in a couple of months. So I'm excited about that. So we're working on a podcast right now. And then we're thinking about doing a part 2 of the documentary that's just focusing on the younger people, because it's time for them to take their place. And so, like I said, it's easy to be something if you can see what's ahead. And so we're trying to, you know, give this to the young people. And I think it's information that'll be good, not just for the African American community, but all communities to see what other cultures are doing, because it just gives them more options of what they can do and what they can be, which I think is important. Other questions?
Have you thought about connecting with school? The question in the chat is, have you thought about connecting with schools to share the role models you have identified in the community?
Yes, we've done quite a bit of work with some colleges. We've kind of did some work with people at the University of Minnesota, Mankato State University, and you know, so we've done some work with churches. And so I'm really open to that. we're hoping that our work will be a model for other cultures to kind of chronicle their work so it can be a part of the state's history. Because I think, many times the groups do not get the support or access or spotlight to kind of show what they're doing. Like I said, I'm really bothered by, when I see African American people on TV, it's negative. Somebody's getting arrested or somebody shot somebody or something. And that's not the case. That's happening with all cultures. But, otherwise, if the news doesn't have anything to report, they're talking about the firing and getting the cat out the tree, which, I think something else could go in that place. So again, I'm very passionate about this work, and not just for the African American culture, but for other cultures. I have an interest to know what they're doing and how they're contributing as well. So to me, that's very important. Other questions? Thank you. Yes, I think it's very important. We have met, um, I think last year we met with the Hmong community in Minnesota, and they're kind of interested in learning from us how to begin the process of trying to chronicle their culture. So I'm very happy to see that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Scott, for joining us. Yeah, just want to make sure you're seeing all the praise in the chat, and we're just so grateful that you joined us today. And also thank you to the audience for your participation in today's session. Just want to make sure that you see the survey link in the chat. So please use the survey linked to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and to share your feedback on this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day.